Ready. Play.
Good afternoon, everybody. Well, it's afternoon where I am. I think Bremer, is it early in the morning your time?
Just after 10:30 in the morning.
Just after 10:30. So we're coming to you from both sides of the morning afternoon divide. Even though that's probably the first time anyone's ever really said that as a way of trying to show a time. And of course, we are here, I say today, for this little video to cover the sort of preview predictions for Taylor Fritz, the American number one, against the Czech number 3 in Jakub Mensik in the what is the semi-finals. So we're very much at the latter stages of the Miami Open, with this sort of second semi-final of this tournament, and sort of kicking off almost. We've had Taylor Fritz who came through an absolute epic against Matteo Berrettini late last night, my time. I think for you, Brenner, it was more probably in your afternoon, late afternoon into early evening. In what was a pretty big epic, actually, for Taylor to be able to get through. Berrettini really putting on a strong performance, and not necessarily something we usually expect from a player who usually does much better on the clay and the grass courts. What did you make of that match?
Yeah, I mean, it was a tight contested match. Obviously, both serve dominated. Big serves for both players. Obviously, the conditions fit that sort of situation, and that's kind of how I saw this match going. It was just going to be, decided by a couple points. To be honest, this match could have been, 7-5, 7-5. Fritz, he had 2 match points in that 15-40 game for Berrettini when he was serving to stay in the match in the second set, and then also had a 6-3 lead in the tiebreak, and Berrettini saved all of those match points and found a way to win the breaker 9-7. His forehand was on full display, and obviously the serve. Like, what always impresses me about Berrettini is he also goes up after that second serve, despite how much pressure was on. So that was obviously like really really fun to watch. And then like the ability to stay in points for Berrettini, like his defense out of both wings is quite impressive. He has a kind of forehand squash shot to stay in those rallies, and then obviously the slice is one of the best in the world. He's just able to kill any momentum, try to neutralize any sort of point despite defensive positions. And then, Fritz obviously played solid. Like I said, they both served really well. Fritz had 16 aces and served at winning almost 80% of his first serve points. It's always a little bit difficult for him to hit so many backhands because he likes to run around that backhand and hit the forehand, but Berrettini keeps it so low that he doesn't have much time. So he was always looking to avoid that Berrettini forehand when possible. And to be honest, yeah, I mean, he ended up winning those pressure points come the third set, but obviously it was a lot of fun. It was a good match, and both have a lot to take away. But here Fritz is in a great opportunity, before the clay to get himself into a final and likely see Novak Djokovic on the other side. So
Yes, I think for Fritz, the last time he got to the semi-finals of a Grand Slam, sorry, Grand Slam. No, we're not at that stage yet. At a Masters level event, let's get the level right here, James. Was the Shanghai semi-final against the Mr. Novak Djokovic. So
right.
he would very much. I mean, it's not to sort of like preview of something that could potentially happen on Sunday. But if he does see Djokovic in that final, there's a very hefty record that he would be looking to try and overturn. And as pointed out here, a fantastic returning performance day from Taylor Fritz to at least stay with Berrettini at large parts of that match. As we know, Berrettini has one of the biggest, best serves on tour, certainly when he gets it firing, and it's really down to some of those elite returners. They're the only ones that can ever really live with Berrettini to try and at least make his service games somewhat competitive, either in tiebreakers or on sort of like tight service games almost. And it's good to see that Taylor's come to X to try and show off how well he was able to serve, or how well he was able to return in that contest. And it's good to see. I think also, I know it was a bit of a joke type thing, was Taylor and his haircut. And the fact that he had a lot chopped off quite recently, and then he ended up getting that loss to Jack Draper at the Indian Wells straight after. But that haircut doesn't seem to be stopping him in Miami. It was almost as though he got that haircut specifically for Miami to give him that couple of extra percentages to try and make a good deep run. As we get a good little photo there of Taylor with that hair locked off, and then sort of like sort of linked off from Fritz having a really strong tight win against Mateo. Like you say, both good for Fritz to get some momentum as we're about to then go into the clay court season. But certainly, I think that momentum that Berrettini can take. He is a guy that will be looking at the clay court season with sort of eyes wide open, really ready to make a stab at getting some big points at some big tournaments. And for him to be able to get a deep run here, get that momentum building, will just help him going into Monte Carlo and then onto, I believe, Munich, and then onto the final two Masters events before Roland Garros. But then sort of we switch over to Taylor's the person he's going to be facing at the other end of the net this time around, which is going to be Jakub Mensik, who this is sort of turned into. I know he had a really good run to the quarterfinals of Shanghai a few months ago, but this really has turned into that breakout Masters run, and yet it's been a little bit of a weird Masters run for Jakub. He's some of the players he's played, he just about a couple of tight sets against Bautista Agut in the first in the first round before being able to sort of smash the Spaniard in the third, and then a very tight a very tight straight sets victory against Jack Draper. Of course, Jack coming off the back of winning Indian Wells, so wasn't necessarily at the races fully in that match. Overpowered Safulin, got a walkover against his countryman Mahatch, and then after a tight first set, it seemed as though the back issues that Arthur Feast was complaining about in the match previously that he was playing against Zverev kind of came to the forte in the second set, where it was a bit of a whitewash from Mensik. I mean, generally, what have you made of the young Czech's run? I mean, I think he's the youngest player born in like 2004, 2005 to make a quarters or a semis or to make the semi-finals of a Masters event, which is a fantastic achievement for the guy.
Yeah. I mean, you talk about a 19-year-old. He's obviously the one that goes under the radar the most. A quiet confidence that Mensik, I think, possesses. Let's talk about, I think, like his frame, his serve, his backhand are all like so good. Obviously at this level, and like has still so much room to grow. But the serve has just been amazing, and that's what's carried him here, especially in that match versus Draper. Probably, it was good to get through a tough test in RBA to start the tournament, because he's a very flat hitter. So, he's always difficult to deal with on these conditions. But in terms of going up against Draper, obviously coming off the Indian Wells title, it was not going to be easy. And he stuck to his guns, and talk about that, lefty forehand to the backhand. That actually helped him a lot. Obviously, like his serve is so dominant, but I think he has a potential to be like a top 5 backhand on the tour in terms of how well and how consistently he hits it. And I think that was like huge in that matchup. Obviously, Safulin, like you don't know what you're going to get from him, but important
just
to
to
take
quickly,
him down.
Just to quickly jump in as well, one of the key stats from certainly that Mensik Draper match was there was a stat that popped up mid-match that showed that his serve quality was at 9.9% or 9.9 out of 10. You could not get any better with your serve than what Jakub Mensik was able to produce at large parts of that match. So, absolute credit to the Czech to be able to put those sort of performances in just to stay off Jack in that contest.
Right. And obviously, like those tie breaks are tough, because you usually do favor, the more, we'll just call it polished player, more experienced player in Draper. But, once again, he wins those breakers and still serves so well. So credit to Mensik. And then yesterday, a good performance. Fees having a quick turnaround. And you talked about the back injury, obviously cramping the last few days, played back-to-back 3-setters. So it felt a little bit unfair to place him first on Stadium. especially against Mensik, who had 2.5 days of rest. So you felt like that first set was super, monumental. He's up an early break, but they go to a breaker, and it's 6-3 in the tiebreak, and I felt like Mensik played a really tentative 6-5 point, and that's kind of stuck with me, despite him winning that second set quite handily. Fees was right there to take it. We know Fees is like known for his attacking minded play, but it just felt tentative, and that's where I feel like, in terms of what wing I worry about, it's the forehand wing for Mensik. I think that forehand's still developing. I just don't think he trusts it as much as he does the backhand. Doesn't hit it as cleanly. So I think, like, in terms of this matchup, Fritzy's going to look to stick on that forehand battle across court, and when he gets a shorter ball, look to hit down the line and follow it in. I think he wants to impose his game on Mensik, because Mensik, I kind of look at him a little bit like Zverev. Obviously, like, the backhands are comparable for me, but he lets you play a bit. But we'll see. That I think that forehand will be something that I'll be looking out for in the pattern play that Fritz looks to go with.
So would you expect then Fritz to really, as I think you were alluding to it, really target and make sure he's sticking a lot of the balls towards that Mensik forehand? Would you imagine that more on the juice side or the ad side in terms of on the court? Which side do you think breaks down more?
I'd say like the cross court battle in terms of both players on the deuce side, because Fritz's backhand has improved so much over the last year, but Mensik, even 19, I think he has right now like I said, a top 10 backhand right now, but I think it can develop into a top 5, top 3 backhand. That's how good it can be. So I think we should also talk about the physical side. Maybe you can bring that up, James. Fritz just played a almost 3-hour battle last night, and he's going to have to do it, just 24 hours later. Or less than.
He is. It's one of those bizarre. I know some other tennis based either YouTube or podcast platforms have brought up about the bizarre scheduling that Miami likes to put in, where they've got 12 days, they somehow go from like 2 days worth of rest every single day, and then all of a sudden they've got 2 matches in 20 hours that they need to somehow complete to keep up with the schedule. But it was something that linked in with the Arta Feast match for Mensik, where Mensik, of course, having that couple of extra days rest from not playing Thomas Mahatch, came in a lot fresher, and that probably played a factor in the tiebreaker, that although he was tentative, he was still alert, which then allowed him to at least be a lot more solid in that tiebreaker, and then him able to sort of run away with it in the second, after Fritz probably realised that trying to go another 2 sets with his back the way it was just not going to be a bit futile in terms of really going pedal to the metal with that. But as you say, Taylor Fritz has gone through a very intense battle. Granted, we know with Taylor that he can go through very intense battles on a daily occurrence, and his body generally holds up incredibly well. He doesn't tend to get that many major injuries, or at least fatigue-based injuries when it comes to his game. And although, of course, he's come off the back of quite a noticeable injury, I think it's an abdominal type injury that he picked up at the end of the Australian Open, which affected his levels in Dallas and Delray. He's really improved upon that now in terms of getting the level back. 4th round run at Indian Wells, now a semi-final run here in Miami. It very much feels as though that the physical element of Taylor is there. So I wouldn't expect, even if Mensik was able to take the first set on a tiebreaker or a very tight first set, for Taylor's body to break down. But it is something that will need to be on watch. And of course, also another thing to be on watch for Mensik is how the rhythm may have been affected. A lot of players say that especially at the slams, is that they like the rhythm of a day off play, day off play, day off play. He hasn't necessarily had that. He won a match, then had basically 3 days of not playing any professional tennis, then played against Feast, but was able to come through quite comfortably in that second set, and then all of a sudden is straight into another match. And how much is he going to be able to keep with that rhythm? Nerves are going to be another issue as well, to see how well the young Czech can deal with the fact that this is a semi-finals of a Masters event, biggest match of his career. You could arguably say that he's about to go out there and face. He's going to have the crowd against him, because they're all going to be backing the American, under the lights. Is he going to be able to deal with that situation? Is he going to be able to bring that 9.9 service game to the forte for large parts of this match, or is there are going to be periods where he is going to struggle? And Taylor is very good at being able to take advantage of players who are struggling against him. So yeah, there's all these questions that sort of jump around. I mean, it's important just to note that although we kind of said before the stream went or before we came live that we thought that they hadn't played before, because none of us could remember if they ever played. Certainly, because in my memory, the first tournament I remember Jakub Mensik being in was the Doha one from last year where he got to the final. They have actually played before, and that was at the US Open back in 2023 in the third round, funny enough, as well. So that actually was a good run for Jakub, who would have been 17, I think, at the time when the tournament took off. But Taylor did quite comfortably beat him at the time, 6-1, 6-2, 6-love. Would you expect a similar type result at all?
Definitely not that much of a beatdown. I think if you think about Fritz right now, he just essentially went through like a returning clinic all night. Obviously Mateo served so well, but he was continuing kind of adjust his position, trying to take the ball early, understand that like sometimes on the forehand wing you can't go for a full swing, and he's chipping the return a lot better. So I think that should help him out a lot tonight. And yeah, you brought it up. I think the nerves, like, they should be there, but as I talk about Mensik, I look at him with the quiet confidence, believes in himself, and yeah, I mean he could bot his way to a breaker in either of these sets, but I just think those pressure points and those decisive moments, I'm much more comfortable with Fritz in those rallies. So that's where I think it could be tough. But hey, like you said, I mean, serving as well as he has in his career, that can definitely carry him to a breaker. And then if you could put some scoreboard pressure on, be a little bit more aggressive on those return games, and we'll see. But like I said, I think that forehand is not going to hold up as well in terms of which wing we could break down. But Fritz's ability, all court ability, it's just gotten so much better. And like we said, like last event on a hard court, definitely favors him. So I think he's going to want to take advantage of this opportunity and make it as quick and concise as he can.
No, certainly. And so then that sort of leads on to the next question, which is, what do you think's going to happen? Who's going to win, and by what, and by how many sets?
Yeah, like I said, I mean, I think Mensik has the ability to serve bot his way to a breaker. But like I would say maybe a breaker and a break in straight sets, Fritz, maybe 6-4, 7-6, or 7-6, 6-4, that type of win. What do you think, James?
So you're going Fritz in 2 or Fritz in straights.
Correct.
I'm going to say Fritz in 3. I got a feeling that Jakub will take the first set potentially on a breaker, but then I think Taylor will just become too strong in sets 2 and 3. Potentially, maybe set 2 being won, maybe 6-4, 6-3, with the last set being won in a tiebreaker. That's where I'm going to go. It's going to go all the way to a tiebreaker. And I can already see John noting it down on his phone to make sure he's gonna shame me if this goes completely wrong and it's Mensik in 2 and we look like absolute mugs in that process. So good, yeah. So just so you got our predictions there, everybody. Just a reminder that the match will kick off local time. Will kick off at 7:00. Which is around about 11 o'clock in the evening UK, and Central Europe, that is midnight on the dot. So very late one if you wish to stay up for that one in Europe. But if you're in the US like Bremer, you're absolutely fine. It's going to be a prime time showing. We've got the Djokovic-Dimitrov match as the prime time showing in the UK, which is also going to be a good one. I'm quite curious, actually, Bremer, who do you think is going to win that one? Just to make my curiosity.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's Joker. I really hope Dimitrov feels his best. Obviously, that was tough for him, and it helps to get an extra day of rest, but that can take a toll on you. So I don't know, probably Joker in 2, maybe a tight set, but I would love it for it to be Grigor and find himself in a final again. That would be awesome.
Yeah,
How about
I've
you?
got a head and heart. I've got a head and heart situation. My head says my head says Djokovic. My heart says Dimitrov.
I think I'm with you there.
I'd want Dimi to win later on, but I could see Djokovic winning that match quite comfortably. He has done in the past, last time they played them, and all that good stuff there. All that's left to say is thanks for joining me, Brenna, for this preview. And make sure you join in, people, for the live stream that will be of this match, probably, most likely. I won't confirm anything or deny anything on that one there. And yeah, thanks so much, everyone.
Thanks, James.
If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell so you don't miss out on all things tennis.